Good morning. We are reading The Wheel on the School by Maynard de Jong, pictures by Maurice Sendak. We are on chapter 15, Storks in the Sea. They have just rescued two storks from a sandbar. When Dalva had returned from his long walk to Ternad and had come striding along the dike, Auke, Dirk, and Elke had shouted the good news to him, all three shouting at one time. "Look," Dalva told them when he last understood what they were trying to tell him. "Look, we've got to figure that they'll make it back with the storks. With Giannis there, they should make it. They'll be coming back with a couple of half-dead storks, but wild storks just the same. Those birds are not going to like being manhandled, so we've got to get ladders to the school and put those birds on the wheel the moment the boat lands. After that, it will be up to the storks. My guess is that after what those poor beasts went through, they'll be so beat anything will look like home to them. The sooner we get them up on that wheel, the more likely they are to settle and stay in shore." Giannis had ladders, they all knew. But Giannis was out in the boat, and the shed where the ladders were stored was probably locked. They raced to Giannis's house just the same, with Dalva, his stout cane tapping, walking sturdily behind them. The shed was locked. "Break the door down," Dalva ordered. The three boys looked at him. Break into a shed that belonged to Giannis? Old Dalva chuckled. "I'll take the responsibility. I don't think Giannis will take me over his knee." When the boys still hesitated, Dalva himself marched up to the door. Using his stout cane as a pry bar, he inserted the tip of it under the hasp of the lock. The staple that held the hasp came squeaking out of the doorpost. Dalva went into the shed, and the boys followed him. They hurried out with the ladders. The noise they made brought Grandmother Sybil III to her back door. "I'd call that breaking and entering," she called out from her back stoop. "And Dalva, at your age, you ought to know better." "It's for a good cause, Sybil," Dalva answered her. "There's storks coming to shore, Sybil, the first since you and I were kids, but these are coming by boat." Over the high board fence, Dalva explained the situation to the old lady. Her eyes sparkled. "Now that I've got to see. For that I'll go up on that dike even if the wind blows me over. But I could use your stick, Dalva." Dalva handed his cane over the fence. "You're getting old, Sybil." The boys were already far down the street with the two ladders. "Well, I've got work to do," Dalva said. He went back into the shed, came out with a coil of rope, and followed the boys. When Dalva arrived at the school, Dirk and Auke had already placed the first ladder against the wall of the school. Under Dalva's direction, they carried up the second ladder and shoved it up on the roof. Dalva threw them the rope. They lashed the second ladder to the first and to the wagon wheel on the ridge of the roof. The boys worked quickly. They were anxious to get back to the dike. Elke had mysteriously disappeared. Now smoke belched out of the school chimney. Bits of paper blew up and rained down on Dirk and Auke on the roof. "What's he doing that for?" Dirk yelled at Dalva. Elke came out of the school rubbing black hands and beating the peat dust off his trousers. He was proud to have thought of building a fire in the school stove. "Those storks stood in cold water for hours after fighting all that storm. They may need some warmth to put life back in them," he said. "Well, well," old Dalva said in surprise. "What don't you kids think of? Baking storks." Finally, Dirk and Auke climbed down the ladders. The three boys immediately charged off toward the dike. Old Dalva was unceremoniously left behind. He marched after them. In the village street, the two dead storks lying beside the stoop of his own house caught Dalva's eye. He sternly called the three boys back. Dirk had to get 2 shovels out of Giannis's shed. Auke and Elke were sent off with the storks to the churchyard below the tower. When Dirk came with the shovels, Dalva made the boys dig a small grave right inside the gate of the churchyard. "But should we do this on government property?" Alka said doubtfully. We've done so much that's illegal the last hour. A little more won't hurt, I think, Dalva said, unconcerned. And who's to know? He tipped his head toward the dike. All the women of Shora were gathered on top of the dike, all staring out at sea. The little children were with their mothers. Even old Grandmother Sybil III stood there, protected from the wind by the huddle of women. Oh, I wonder how they're coming, Alka said. Dalva shrugged. You'll find out the minute you've got those storks buried. Can't leave dead storks lying around. If those 2 storks they're bringing in should start to fly around Shora and see the carcasses of their cousins, they might not feel so good about Shora. They might want to get out of here as fast as they can. That was all that was needed. Alka and Dirk dug with a will, but they were too impatient to dig a very deep hole. After the storks were placed in the grave, the sod was replaced and trampled down. The boys could not wait another minute. They dropped their shovels and dashed to the dike. As old Dalva stooped to pick up the shovels, a great shout went up. Dalva let the shovels lie and went as fast as he could toward the dike. Everybody from the top of the dike had rushed down to the sea. Dalva mounted the crest just in time to see the 3 boys grab the sides of the dinghy and pull it close to the dike. Lena jumped out with a stork in her arms. After her, Pure came with another stork. They raced up the dike with the 3 boys jumping around them like eager dogs. Yella and the teacher had climbed out of the boat and now walked after the group. The women clambered up the dike. Back in the boat, Giannis let out an enraged bellow. Everybody had forgotten him, tied down to his seat. Get that anchor up the dike, get that wheelchair down here, and get me out. Don't I count for anything around here anymore? Well, Dalva and the teacher went to Giannis's rescue. The others marched over the top of the dike without so much as looking back. Grandmother Sybil was left behind, too, in the excitement. In the group that set off for the school, no one had a thought for anything but the storks. Alka, Dirk, and Alka were trying to tell Pure and Lena what they had done to get ready for the storks, but kept interrupting themselves with eager questions about the storks. The 5 boys and Lena raced on. They left the women far behind. Still farther behind, the teacher and Dalva were inching the wheelchair down the dike. Giannis sat fuming and raging, as eager and impatient as any of the children. I could have drowned or starved there in that boat just so those 2 storks were all right, he said. Calm yourself, Giannis. You did your part, Grandmother Sybil III told him, but she was doing her own level best with the aid of Dalva's cane to hurry before the wheelchair. At the school, Giannis came into his own again. The whole group was waiting for him, uncertain whether or not to put the half-drowned, bone-cold storks up on the wheel or to warm them first in the schoolroom by Elka's fire. They shouted the perplexing question at Giannis. Giannis made them wait until his wheelchair had been pushed right among them. Then he had to consider for a maddeningly long time.